Yo, what's going on with y'all boys, man? Welcome back to another video. And if you're new here, welcome. You know what I'm saying? As you can see, I'm here with something new. I'm switching up the content a little bit. You don't really get to see this beautiful face all over your screen. You know what I'm saying? As you can see, I'm going to be ranking all 32 teams from 1 to 32. 1 being the best, 32 being the worst. You know what I'm saying? Obviously. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's pretty much. Let's get straight into it. You know what I'm saying? First and foremost, we have the LA Rams. You know what I'm saying? Who a team who really made the biggest acquisition of this offseason by and really a surprise. You know what I'm saying? As far as you know, really a surprise as far as who they gave up to get him, and which they got Myles Garrett, obviously. Um, and the biggest acquisition. They also got Trent McDuffie, and honestly, they just gotten better. What was already a stacked roster, they basically added on to it. And honestly, they were a game away from the Super Bowl last year, and basically re-up in the areas of need that they needed to. You know what I'm saying? So obviously, we just gonna get it done and put them at number one. You know what I'm saying? We're just gonna put him at number one. It ain't too much explanation needed. Myles Garrett, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Matthew Stafford, former MVP, who then you have a defensive player of the year, candidate for defensive player of the year. It's self-explanatory. Now, you know what I'm saying? Speaking of the Myles Garrett trade, we have the team that gave up Myles Garrett to get back Jared Verse. You know what I'm saying? A dog for a dog, basically. You know, and honestly, you trade away somebody like Myles Garrett, you're going to get worse. There's no situation where you're going to get better, but after trade, especially immediately after trading away somebody like Myles Garrett. Even though you did get back Jared Verse, who one of the most relentless pass rushers, one of the best pass rushers. You know what I'm saying? Physical pass rusher in the league. Young talent, potential to be, defensive player of the year, and you basically added on to, what you could say a young team. You added more young pieces with Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion, two young pieces to that receiver room where last pretty much these past few years you really struggle, with um, receiver help, and you got somebody that you can build on now, somebody that can build alongside Shadur Sanders, you know, and they really don't know who their quarterback is going to be. You know what I'm saying? I'm hearing rumors that Deshaun Watson is going to be, you know, most likely going to be the QB1 over there in Cleveland. With that being said, I did all that talking just to put them to they're still going to be one of the worst teams in the league. It's really nowhere else to put it. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of stuff in question. You know what I'm saying, that needs to be answered. You know, and for a team that has made as many moves as they made, it's going to be a rocky start. You know what I'm saying? I don't really see them really figuring it out until 2-3 years from now. Then we have the Falcons. You know what I'm saying? Speaking of quarterback play, that quarterback room ain't looking too good. You know what I'm saying? You have Tua, just throwing straight bologna sandwiches. I mean, you have Bijan, one of the best running backs in the league. You have Drake London, one of the best receivers in the league. And we'll see if AJ Terrell can bounce back. But outside of that, but the drop off from that to, the average player on their roster, there's definitely a gap. You know what I'm saying? Bijan and Drake London can't do it all, especially if they don't have a consistent quarterback to give them the ball, especially for somebody like Drake London. And if you don't have consistent quarterback play, that means you're going to have to lean on the run more. And, there's only a few teams that I really feel like they can run the ball every play of the game and still be successful. You know what I'm saying? Really only one team, and that's the 49ers. And I think that's mainly because of their system. You know what I'm saying? And you have Christian McCaffrey, who is the best two-way running back ever. You know what I'm saying? Being able to catch the ball and run the ball. So even then, you know what I'm saying, you need a quarterback to give him the ball, and Brock Purdy is a solid quarterback to give, somebody the ball. But hey, we'll move on. You know what I'm saying? I see that they coming up next. We'll get to them. But you know what I'm saying, with that being said, they really need some quarterback help. And I don't know how Penix is gonna come back looking. And if Tua is your starting QB and you're looking for faith in Tua, it ain't gonna be too good. So with that being said, I'm going to also put them in 26 to 32. Matter of fact, I'm gonna move them up just a little bit, because I think the Browns have more questions, but they have more potential. The Falcons have more potential than the Browns. You know what I'm saying? Because you have a phenom in Bijan Robinson, but they have the potential to still move down. You know what I'm saying? As the list goes on, we'll see. I don't really see them as a playoff team, because they really haven't gotten better. I mean, you added some young talent through the draft, and then one of your key pieces on the defensive side, Jalen Walker, injured. You know what I'm saying? Out for the season. Um, and we don't know if AJ Terrell is going to come back or bounce back from a down season. So we'll see, man. It's a lot of questions. I still think they're going to be competitive, because even towards the end of last season, they seemed like they were starting to put it together. But they basically took the head coach from the Browns and put him on the Falcons. So it's a whole new head coach, whole new system. Who knows what it's going to look like? But moving on, we have the Chargers. Justin Herbert, you know what I'm saying? He gonna light it up. Every year he's been in the league, he's been lighting it up. Then we have, you know, I think the biggest thing with them last season is what really stopped them from really making some noise is, two of their best offensive linemen went down. And offensive lineman, is really the most important position in all of football. You know what I'm saying? If you don't have an offensive line, you don't have enough time to create plays. Receivers don't have enough time to get open. Running backs don't have, room to run. Quarterbacks don't have enough time to get through their reads or whatnot, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's really the main reason that was holding them back. Outside of that, you could say the receiver position was also holding them back. But I think, Justin Herbert being a real talented QB, you know what I'm saying? With his talent, you can kind of get over. It's almost like a Josh Allen where you can kind of get over the lack of depth or talent at the receiver position. You know, just given his ability to create plays. But with that being said, I see them as a middle of the pack team. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't say. Matter of fact, I'm gonna move them up. You know what I'm saying? Because I see them just outside that top 10 range. I don't see them as a top 10 team. The top 10 team is deep in the playoff Super Bowl. You know, so but I don't really see them at that level yet. You know what I'm saying? I think they still have a few kinks they need to work out. The receiver position. But once they figure out that receiver position and the secondary position, you know what I'm saying? I think they'll be in good hands. Outside of that, I like what they got going on. Now, you know what I'm saying? The team that I was talking about earlier or hinting at earlier with the 49ers. I think this is just a team that is automatic. Like they're an automatic top 10 team. They're always going to be, a competitive team. They're always going to be a team where you question maybe they could, make some noise. They may not make the Super Bowl, but they're going. It's a playoff lock, basically. You know what I'm saying? Basically, last season they were playing with all backups besides Christian McCaffrey, and they were still a competitive team. You know, they had Mac Jones looking like, the next franchise QB. You know what I'm saying? So, and then it's really based on the system that they run. You know what I'm saying? That Kyle Shanahan offense is just something about it that, they might not make the flashy plays or whatnot, but they just make the right plays. You know what I'm saying? They do just enough to keep you wanting more. And as long as they got Kyle Shanahan behind that headset, I feel like they're always going to be a top 10 team. unless a major injury like Christian McCaffrey goes out, who's basically the heart and soul of that entire system, goes down or whatnot. Hopefully he doesn't, but the way that their injury's been looking, I don't know, man. Because even now, Mike Evans just signed there. Now he hurt. Basically, everybody you can think of on this roster is hurt. But now we have. Speaking of upset, we have the Carolina Panthers. You know what I'm saying? My favorite team. If you don't know, you know what I'm saying. We speaking of the Rams earlier. We almost pulled off an upset. You know what I'm saying? In the playoffs. First of all, people was doubting us even making the playoffs. Then we made the playoffs and almost upset, the number one seed or the top seed, one of the best teams in the league. And honestly, this offseason we gotten better, you know. And then the fact that we have a young team, if we can just continue to progress, what I'm saying, like we should, it, I feel like it's only going to get better. What I'm saying, Tedoroy McMillan, I feel like he's only going to get better. You know what I'm saying? Because last season, it wasn't a spectacular season. You know what I'm saying? But it was, he had, a put the league on notice type of season. Like, okay, I'm here. You know what I'm saying? I can really make a difference. You know what I'm saying? If he can continue to progress like he's projected to be, you know what I'm saying? Then we had a solid defense and continue to build on that. Now, the season ended on a bad note with the defense, but you know what I'm saying? Overall, we still had a solid defense. And for the most part, as long as no major injuries happen or whatnot, I feel like that's the only thing that's really gonna stop us from progressing. That and Bryce Young. You know what I'm saying? I was one of the only firm believers in Bryce Young from start to finish. You know what I'm saying? When all the people that was talking about CJ Stroud should have been number one, or Bryce Young is a bust or whatnot, I was one of the firm believers, and I'm still one of the firm believers. If he can continue to progress, and it seemed like last season, after he got benched, it seemed like we started to find rhythm. He started to find his confidence, and I think we added Jalen Phillips, we added Devin Lloyd, in which we needed some linebacker help. You know what I'm saying? Some linebacker depth, some edge rushing help. Linebackers and edge rushers that can make plays with Jalen Phillips and Devin Lloyd. With Devin Lloyd being one of, just it seems like he just has a knack for the ball, and Jalen Phillips just being a versatile rusher. I feel like those are two players that can really only help. Now we did draft a receiver, Brazzle, but he ended up getting injured. You know what I'm saying? So I think next season, it's just one of them situations where next season we're gonna be in a better position. You know what I'm saying? Because of that, I feel like that's the only way you can really look at it. But yeah, with that being said, I'll put us between the 16 and 20 range. You know what I'm saying? Because we have the potential. The potential is there. But we just have to meet that potential. Now it's just about meeting that potential and exceeding expectations again, like we did last season. And we gotten better. Now, speaking of Super Bowl, you know what I'm saying? With the speaking of the playoffs, Seahawks basically rolling through the playoffs. And I feel like this is one of the only teams where I really don't need an explanation. I'll put them just below the Rams because they did, lose Kenneth Walker, who, down the stretch, besides JSN, was really their best player or most efficient player. You could honestly say they wouldn't have won without him. You know what I'm saying? Just how big of a part he played, and the fact that you did end up losing. But I think with the system that the Seahawks like, and the fact that your biggest strength is the pass game, I don't think Kenneth Walker would have that big of an impact on the Seahawks to where, oh, they're not a Super Bowl contender no more. You know what I'm saying? It's not like Kenneth Walker was the leading rusher in every major category. Even though if they would have gave him the touches like if they should, he would have been. But you know what I'm saying? Even in certain situations, they got around that. As long as they got JSN and that system is running how it's supposed to run, I don't see no team stopping them. And also, they did lose Kobe Bryant, who's also, a big part of that defense. Um, but yeah, so they did get worse on paper, but they're the Super Bowl champs. No major game shifting changes happen. So yeah, now we have the Buffalo Bills. You know what I'm saying? I mentioned him earlier a little bit, with comparing him to like Justin Herbert, that type of player where, you know, even though that their receiver room may have a lack of depth or talent, even though they did add DJ Moore, which I feel like was a great pickup for them. You know what I'm saying? Because they needed that. You know what I'm saying? You could honestly say that's why they didn't make any noise last season. Um, that and the fact that they ran into one of the best defenses in the league, but they could have made some noise if they had some receiver depth. Um, and honestly, as long as they have Josh Allen, you know what I'm saying, they're always going to be at least a top 10 team. You know, and honestly, this is one of the situations where they could easily but slip into the top 5. You know what I'm saying? Based on how this list is going to eventually go. But as long as they got Josh Allen, one of the best, he's just I don't, the man's just a freak of nature. You know what I'm saying? 6'5", just manhandling people. You know what I'm saying? As long as they got him, he's always going to find a way to make plays. You did lose, Joey Bosa on the defensive side. So we'll see how big of an impact that has. But for the most part, the resume speaks for itself. They've all, every season where it seems like they've gotten worse, or if they just going to stand still, they always find a way to continue to be competitive. They're always going to be competitive. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say. Now we have Green Bay. You know what I'm saying? The team that time and time again, I expect to really make that leap into being one of the best teams, most dominant teams in the NFL. Just the fact that the talent that they have with Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, them adding Michael Parsons is like they have so much talent on their roster. And it seems like time and time again every year they just underwhelm, But with that being said, I still think that they're a top 10 team. You know what I'm saying? I still put them in that top 10. Just outside the top 10 though. It's not like close to 5 or whatnot. I still put them in close to the top 10, 9, 8 type of range, 10 range, because they still have to. I feel like their leap is still coming. You know what I'm saying? But it's just they have to figure that system out. Or they have to switch some things within that system. I think their only real weakness that shows up time and time again is the fact that it's just the receivers cannot get like the touches that they're supposed to get. You know what I'm saying? Like if they have that number one receiver, I think that will really put them over the top. And I thought, Romeo Doubs would have been, that receiver to make that leap out of anybody in that receiver room, but eventually they ended up making him walk for no reason. Not for no reason, but he eventually walked for nothing. They got nothing in return for him, which was a surprise to me because, I thought he would have been the wide receiver one. And at times throughout the season, he was the wide receiver one. But it's just, for some reason, they spread the wealth too much. But the talent is still there. So I'll still put him in the top 10. Then we have the New York Saints. Oh, I said New York Saints. The New Orleans Saints, who I think uh, is probably number one on comeback team of the year. You know what I'm saying? The team that can make the biggest leap, most improved team. Um, just given the fact that, it seems like they're another team towards the end of the season. It seemed like they started to pull it together. You know what I'm saying? Tyler Shuff started to really gain his confidence. Who getting Shuff tonight? You know what I'm saying? He's really started to gain his confidence, really started to indulge in that New Orleans culture. You know, you had Liam Cohen, doing the same thing, starting to indulge in the culture. Um, yeah, you basically, you know, he started to indulge in the culture. They had a solid defense last season, even at times where it seemed like they didn't. Now, when they went into the teams like the Rams or the Seahawks, they had a little trouble. But with against teams like the Titans or teams that were basically in the same boat as them, they were they were right with them. You know what I'm saying? Those were the times where they really showed potential. I think they have such a young team, and that duo, and them adding Jordan Tyson, who I honestly thought maybe besides Carnell Tate would have been, and besides Carnell Tate was the best receiver in this draft class. And then you pair him alongside Chris Olave, then you have Tyler Shuff who can, make that leap into, like I said, not only making the Saints the most improved team in the league, but him also being the most improved player in the league. Um, with that being said, I also put him in the 16 to 20 range. You know what I'm saying? Last season they would have been 26 to 32, but towards the end of the season, 21 to 25. You know what I'm saying? I really think the only thing that they really need to figure out is no, what they really need to figure out is the consistency. You know what I'm saying? Because last season, one moment they'll, their defense will be playing lights out. You know what I'm saying? 10-0. You know what I'm saying? Holding teams 10-0, 10-7. They'll have games like that. But then next week, they'll give up 40 points. You know what I'm saying? And also, alongside their consistency, their offense. Their offense can pull it together, and they really start figuring out ways to win. You know what I'm saying? Those close games, they'll really be a team to be reckoned with. And speaking of most improved teams, maybe right behind the Saints, I have, the Raiders. You know what I'm saying? Top 3 to top 5 range as far as most improved teams, based off of last season. Uh, I have, the Raiders alongside that. You know what I'm saying? Just given that, hey, Ashton Jeanty, that leap is coming. You know what I'm saying? Y'all heard it here first. That leap is coming. You know what I'm saying? Uh, he wasn't in conversations with Barry Sanders in college for no reason. You know what I'm saying? It's only a matter of time before he really gets to figure it out. And I think the biggest question with them is, that their secondary and the receiver corps. You know what I'm saying? Because, besides Brock Bowers, if your tight end is your best receiver, there's no, like, the chance of success is slim. If your tight end is your best receiver. You know what I'm saying? There's no uh, success that comes out of situations like that. Look at Arizona, for example. And I said this before in the video. If your tight end is your wide receiver one, it just it's just no way around that. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no success to win within that. You know what I'm saying? Unless your system solely revolves around your tight end. But even then, if you have a great tight end like the Chiefs, for example, with Travis Kelce, you know what I'm saying? You had somebody like Tyreek Hill alongside him. You know what I'm saying? Who was just as dominant or whatnot. But with that being said, uh, I still put him in, saying the 26 to 32 range. Still one of the worst teams in the league, just because I don't, besides Ashton Jeanty, uh, and Brock Bowers, it's a lot of stuff that need, and Max Crosby. they don't have enough. That's the best way to put it. They don't have enough. Uh, they really haven't made any upgrades as far as the offensive line. No major upgrades. I mean, you could say Brock Bowers being hurt last season hurt them, but like I said, if you're looking for your tight end one to be your wide receiver one, it's just no success coming out of that. So with that being said, let's move on. We have the Dallas Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? A team that I think if their defense can match up to their offense, they're going to be one of the best teams in the league. And with that being said, you know what I'm saying, we're going to move them to that top 10 range. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, they towards the end of the last season, they started to finish, the year strong. You know what I'm saying? The first, before the trade deadline, it was rocky. You know what I'm saying? It seemed like they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league. But then they made some moves that I really like in getting Quinnen Williams. And then in this offseason, adding Caleb Downs, who I think he just, like, he just has a net. Like, he's just a football player. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, he's one of the players that he's just going to be all over the place. Every play you look, he's going to be around you somehow. He's just attracted to the ball, but you made some key moves that you needed an upgrade on. I think one of the main positions that they are hurting on is still secondary, because you had Trayvon Diggs last season, let him go, but he wasn't playing well. Then you have Deron playing, who was battling injuries pretty much all last season, and you don't know how he's going to come back. And honestly, I really, it's just the questions that they don't have many questions, but the questions that they do have are big questions that need to be answered. And like I said, their offense is always going to be up here. You know what I'm saying? I expect them to still have the top offense in the league, or one of the top offenses in the league. It's just about that defense that I'm kind of iffy about. But I do think, them pulling it together at the end of last season, can carry a little bit on into this season, especially with Quinnen Williams getting another, year under his belt under this system and really getting accustomed to it. I think, the improvement from last season is coming. Now we have the Chicago Bears, or should I say Indiana Bears, because it seems like they're not going to be in Chicago much longer. And yeah, what I'm saying, they're one of them teams where, I also, you have Caleb Williams. I mean, you lost DJ Moore, but you wasn't really involving him in the system anyway. So I don't really see him making that much of an impact by losing him. You have a young core with Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, who, it seems like he's just destined to make another jump. Well, not destined, but it seems like, there's room for him to make another leap to a whole new level. And, I think, they're also a team where their biggest question is their defense. You know what I'm saying? Their offense is going to be electric. You know, uh, their offense is going to be electric. I mean, they really didn't make major moves on offense, but as far as giving away DJ Moore, but I still think they're going to be electric because they wasn't using him anyway. And I just think the biggest thing is defense. You know what I'm saying? Because honestly, was the major problem last season with them. The secondary and just the inconsistent defense. So, and the fact that it's just, like I said, they didn't make any major improvements. So with that being said, I'll put them outside the top 10, just outside the top 10. You know what I'm saying? They're still going to be a playoff team, but it wasn't any really major movements that I could say that put them over the top to say, okay, they're going to be one of the best teams in the league. You know what I'm saying? You have Ben Johnson, you have Caleb Williams, you have DeAndre Smith. DeAndre Swift. You have Rome Odunze. Seems like that's your core. You have Luther Burton. Basically, the whole Lions offense. You just have another remake of the Lions offense, just with a more electric QB. I think they're going to be in the same boat like they were last season. Now we have, speaking of rise, we have a major fall. You know what I'm saying? Indianapolis Colts, a team that had the biggest fall off of any team, probably so far this decade. You know what I'm saying? They went from what 7-1, 8-1, looking like they were gonna, compete with a team like the Chiefs, looking like they was gonna be, Super Bowl or bust. You know what I'm saying? That may be an exaggeration, but hey, it was looking like it at some points. You know what I'm saying? But then Daniel Jones ended up going down with an injury, and it basically messed up their whole team. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to put them 21 to 25 range. You know what I'm saying? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think they lost some offensive line depth. They you don't know how Daniel Jones is going to come back. Basically, the strength of this team, or the the success of this team, leans on Daniel Jones. I'm saying, because we saw how big of an impact Daniel Jones had on this team, him playing at an MVP caliber level, and as soon as he went out the lineup, it was just downhill from there. And they're basically in the same situation. You know what I'm saying? Didn't really make any major moves. You trade away Michael Pittman. I do see Josh Downs making a major leap. You know what I'm saying? I do see him making one of those major leaps, kind of like a Wan'Dale Robinson last season. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? So basically, their season rides on Daniel Jones and how he comes back. If he doesn't come back MVP level, it's gonna be the same result as last season. If he comes back MVP level, Daniel Jones, or better, put him right back in that top 10 range like they were last season. You know what I'm saying? For multiple weeks. Now moving on. Speaking of downhill, we have the Miami Dolphins. Honestly, there's really no discussion that need to be made. There's no discussion as far as, I don't really even know what to say. You know what I'm saying? Every time I think of the Miami Dolphins, it's just a black screen. You know what I'm saying? It's a complete reset. It's a complete rebuild. Uh, they gotten worse in every category except for keeping Achane and adding Malik Willis. But outside of that, it's just, yeah, there's really nothing else to really say about them. They're in a complete rebuild, and we'll see in the next a year or two which direction they're going in. Now we have the Patriots, one of the best defenses in the league, one of the most surprising teams, going from worst to first within just a season. They basically gotten better. Defense stayed the same, didn't make no major changes. So I expect their defense to still be elite. But, you know, I think with that being said, they're still going to be. I think with that being said, they're still going to be a top 5 team like they were last season. I think that's self-explanatory. They were in the Super Bowl, and they got better in every category that they possibly could get better in. Adding Romeo Doubs, who I thought was going to be the wide receiver one in Green Bay. Adding A.J. Brown, who was the wide receiver one in Philadelphia. Basically, they added in the area that basically hindered them last season from really making some noise offensively. Because their defense was carrying, and now they added some more firepower offensively. But I wouldn't be surprised if, they were underwhelming this season, because I think to go from worst to first, you have to find some type of middle ground. You know, you have to establish some type of expectation because right now they don't really have an expectation. But I think it's hard not to put them in the top five because they improved on paper in every category. Um, Now we have Detroit, another follow. You know what I'm saying? A team that was looking promising, you know what I'm saying, for these past two seasons, coming into last season, for the prior two seasons going into last season, looking very promising. A game away from the Super Bowl, you know, a tragic ending. You know what I'm saying? With Brandon Ayuk catching that ball. If you don't know, look it up. If you know, you know. But with that being said, I still think that they're going to make some noise. You know what I'm saying? I still think that this is going to be a team that, you know, they're going to surprise a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? I think this is going to be a revenge type of season. Um, you know, where they really start to figure out. Because honestly, last season, their entire defense was hurt. I mean, they did get worse on the defensive side by losing Terry and Arnold. But, you know, I think, you know, the fact that they were still competitive with him missing time, with, you know, basically their entire secondary and them having to depend on fourth and fifth stringers and cornerbacks converting to safeties and just switching around their whole defense, and they were still just outside the playoffs. I think they can get that health together. They're going to submit themselves right back in that top five. Um, and speaking of a team that I think, you know, would make some noise next season, um, looking for a bounce back type of season, is the Bengals. You know what I'm saying? This is a team that I think, you know, is destined that they're gonna have a bounce back type of season. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, I think they're still gonna have a bounce back season. Um, you know, I think they're one of them teams, just like the Cowboys, where if their defense can even meet close to their offense, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. And, you know, this past offseason, they did get better defensively. You know what I'm saying? Adding Dexter Lawrence. Uh, so on paper, they gotten way better defensively by adding him. You did lose Trey Hendrickson, but you added Dexter Lawrence, like I said. So, hey man, then if you can get that secondary together a little bit, um, you know, I think they're going to be able to turn this ship around. You know what I'm saying? I just think last season when Joe Burrow missing time, with them just making bad decisions the off season before last season, with them drafting players that really didn't make an impact in college and expecting them to just come into the league making an impact. With Shamar Stewart, hopefully he can make a leap. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the leap is coming, but with that being said, like the Cowboys, I have them as a top 10 team. I may have them just above the Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? I have them as a top 10 team. Um, just because they, you know, they, like I said, their offense can meet their defense. Matter of fact, I'm moving down just a little bit. This is an interesting case because I want to. Do I have them just outside the top 10? Because it's like, bro, the last time that they had a solid defense, they were in the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of hard. Matter of fact, I'm going to put them 11. I'm going to put them just outside the top 10. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, that defense was atrocious last season. And unless they can make just a complete 180, you know, it's still going to be some points in the season where it's going to be a struggle. You know, so I'm gonna have them just outside the top 10, but I still see them making the playoffs. You know, uh, so just outside the top 10, I think that's a perfect spot. Um, and speaking of another most improved team candidate, we have the Titans, led by Cam Ward. If he can make a leap that he's projected to make, hey, I can see them as a middle of the pack type of team. But I think it's a lot of stuff that has to go right. It's a lot of, banking on certain players to make a leap. You know what I'm saying? Because they have made, improvements at the receiver position. Um, but I still think he needs more of, help even at the running back position. So, you know what I'm saying? Moving on, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. You know what I'm saying? A team that has kind of plateaued. What was once looking like a dynasty in the making, it has kind of plateaued into just, what now? You know, you traded away AJ Brown, who a lot of people was considering the major problem, and now, it's all on Jalen Hurts. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be all on Jalen Hurts, but it seems like that's where it's going. A lot of people in the media basically are putting it on Jalen Hurts. You know what I'm saying? For some reason, people act like it's just his fault. You know what I'm saying? He did have a down year last season, but the man's still a top 10 QB in the league. There's not many QBs that you're going to choose over. You know what I'm saying? There may be a top 5 lock that you may choose over him, but after that, it gets hard. Or it's just a toss up. But with that being said, with them losing AJ Brown, I definitely think it's going to take a hit. But the fact that AJ Brown, it was kind of inconsistent last season, and they were still finding some type of ways to win. Kind of a situation like how the Chiefs was, 2 years ago, where they ended up being in the Super Bowl with just one score games and last second game winning field goals. They were still finding ways to win. I think the Eagles, they're kind of in a similar situation. You know what I'm saying? Where they're still going to find different ways to win. AJ Brown is definitely going to take a hit, but you replace him with some young talent with Mekhi Leonard. You know what I'm saying? You still have Devontae Smith, who I think is going to make a major leap. You know what I'm saying? This season, or a leap, just nonetheless. He's going to make a leap this season. Because I do think, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to say AJ Brown was holding them back, but you know what I'm saying? AJ Brown and Saquon, it's a lot of rotisserie chicken going on where the ball just moving around, and now you free up some of those touches with moving on from AJ Brown, and now Devontae Smith being the lead guy. You did lose Reed Blankenship, well, I also would say take a hit, but I still think with you having, as much talent as you do in Jalen Hurts and Saquon and Devontae and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean and Jordan Davis and Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter, you still have names on top of names on top of names as far as talent. You're just not the bottle just not overflowing, but the bottle's still full. So with that being said, I still see them as a top 10 team. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I'll put them right here. You know what I'm saying? Just outside the top 5. I still have them as a top 10 team. Yeah, I think that's self-explanatory. Been to 2 of the last 4 Super Bowls, but now moving on, you know what I'm saying? This may surprise a lot of people, but the Jacksonville Jaguars, you know what I'm saying? The team that could have easily won the most improved team last season. This may, like I said, this may surprise a lot of people, but I'm gonna put them in the upper echelon of the worst. I'm gonna put them in the upper echelon of the worst. They're not dead last, but I don't really see them having the same season that they did last season. You know what I'm saying? They lost some pretty big pieces with Travis Etienne. We don't know how Brian Thomas is going to come back. So that's up in the question. Like I said, you lost Travis Etienne, you lost Devin Lloyd. Those are two key pieces that without them you wouldn't even be the team that you were last season. You had one All Pro and another could have been All Pro. Travis Etienne being the could have been All Pro. Then you having Devin Lloyd being the All Pro. Yeah. So I think just because of that, you don't lose those type of players and expect to still maintain a level of dominance or success. You know what I'm saying? Unless you just have a generational type of player. You know. Now, you know what I'm saying? Speaking of elite defenses, we have the Denver Broncos. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, I'm gonna go ahead and slide the Lions outside the top 10. You know what I'm saying? Just outside the top 10. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna put them just outside the top 10. You know what I'm saying? Because they did lose. You know what I'm saying? Some major pieces, but like I said, it's still gonna be a bounce back type of year. They're not missing the playoffs again. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? I keep saying, you know what I'm saying? But with that being said, I'm gonna slide the Broncos in the top 5. You know what I'm saying? Just above the Patriots, because I feel like they're one of them teams where they could have made the Super Bowl last season if Bo Nix didn't get hurt. Had a good chance. Most likely would have made it if he didn't get hurt. Because even with Jarrett Stidham started, they were still competitive. You know what I'm saying? It was still a competitive game. It was still, up in the air. Especially behind that defense. Hey, I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't matter who you put behind center or who you have around that defense, but that defense gonna make some shape always. So as long as they got that defense together and Patrick Surtain can stay healthy and Bo Nix can stay healthy, there's no decline. You know what I'm saying? They really haven't gotten worse in no category. There really hasn't been no major changes. So I still expect them to still, you know what I'm saying, be a team to be reckoned with. Now, you know what I'm saying, we getting into the meat and potatoes. You know what I'm saying? A lot of teams that can go either way. Now we have the New York Giants. You know what I'm saying? A team that, was hyped up. You know what I'm saying? This offseason, one of the most hyped teams coming into this season. And honestly, they did lose a big piece in Dexter Lawrence, who's been an anchor in their defense since coming into the league. But they did finally get a coach that I think can really stir the ship. You know what I'm saying? That can really give them a sense of direction. That's been there before. That knows what it takes. You have Jackson Dart. You added, you got Malik Neighbors coming back. You got Odell, you added Odell. Now he might not be 2016 Odell, but you can still do a little something. You added, you basically added another linebacker, Arvell Reese. You know, uh, who can instantly become one of the most relentless pass rushers. Can just versatile, can play all over the place, all over the line. So yeah, you definitely lost a big plug up the middle type of player. You know what I'm saying? But you filled that void in various other ways. So with that being said, I still have them as a 21 to 25 team because I do think that losing Dexter Lawrence, that's a major hit. Losing Wan'Dale Robinson. Oh, I forgot to mention they lost Wan'Dale Robinson. That's another major hit. That's a 1,000-yard receiver, and that's one of the best interior tackles in the game right now. So those are two pieces that it's going to take some work to really fill, but they have gotten, overall I would say they're trending in the right direction. So now, moving on, we got the Minnesota Vikings. You know what I'm saying? A team that, disappointed last season, uh, mainly because of how JJ McCarthy performed. No disrespect to JJ McCarthy, but you know what I'm saying, he underperformed last season. Uh, made Kevin O'Connell lose the credibility, or lose a little bit of the credibility when it comes to being the QB whisperer. Um, but I do think that this is another backup, a rebound type of season. Not that I said backup, a rebound type of season. You got Kyler Murray, who I think it was just a situation with him. You know what I'm saying? I really can't put the blame on Kyler Murray being in Arizona and not performing. It's just something about Arizona that I just don't understand. And like I said, I made a video about it. You know what I'm saying? You can go check that out. Hopefully you go check it out. But yeah, it's just something about him that it just don't sit right, man. It's gonna take basically a miracle to come through there and really change the course of that franchise. So I can't really fault Kyler Murray for being in a situation like that. There ain't too many players that can go in a situation like that and thrive. But now he's, in a whole new system with probably in the best situation possible. He's with Kevin O'Connell, who's considered the quarterback whisperer. So see if he can turn his career around. He did it with Sam Darnold. You know what I'm saying? He can do it with Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray, he still got some left in the tank for sure. You know what I'm saying? I just think it was a situation he was in. You keep repeating it, but with that being said, you have a solid defense. Even though last season they still underperformed, but I think that was because they couldn't get off the field. And with that being said, I'll have them middle of the pack. You know what I'm saying? Middle of the pack. I don't. I think that's a perfect spot to put them in. Uh, and yeah, I think that's self-explanatory. As long as Kyler Murray, he doesn't lose the team the game, I think they'll still be, in great position to win. You know what I'm saying? You still have one of the best receivers in the league, or at times could be easily be the best receiver in the league. You have the talent. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. Middle of the pack. You lost Jonathan Grenard, but I don't really see that as a major impact. I think their defense is really based on system rather than, leaning on certain players. So we'll see how that goes. Middle of the pack, I think is perfect. And speaking of the Arizona Cardinals, you know what I'm saying? I kind of foreshadowed of where I have the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, I think that's self-explanatory. They're just another team. Hey, when you hear Arizona Cardinals, what do you think of? Nothing. See, you can't even see. You was speechless behind the screen. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's no disrespect to Arizona. It's just, I don't know. It's just the system, or like I said, if your tight end is your best player and your wide receiver one, it's not a lot of success that's gonna go on within that organization. Period. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see if they can exceed expectations. But right now, I got them as the worst. Um, and looking at the teams that's coming up, they might not be the worst. But you know what I'm saying, going we getting back on the winning side with the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, if Lamar Jackson can stay healthy, they're just another one of those teams where I feel like they're a lot. You know what I'm saying? If they can stay healthy, and honestly, I'll put them. I'll put them. Top five, rounding out the top five. I think, like I said, they're one of them teams. If they can stay healthy, it, it's self-explanatory. They shown that they can, at least make the playoffs. But I think the biggest thing is injuries with them. You know what I'm saying? Lamar Jackson missing a lot of time last season, and really just after that hamstring injury not coming back the same. But hopefully after this offseason he can come back the same. they're under a whole new system, so maybe that can unlock some momentum. I mean, you got Derrick Henry. He's pretty much always going to be, you know, he's always going to be effective. Is the best way to put it. Um, and yeah, man, a breath of new fresh air with a mentor coming in there. And maybe he can change the, you know, what I'm saying, the energy within there. Uh, you could say they gotten better by adding Jacoby Lane in that receiver room. You know what I'm saying? I like him, especially when he was at USC. But yeah, you know, so you pretty much gotten better. Added Trey Hendrickson. Um, you know, everything's pretty much still the same. The Ravens are the Ravens. You know, we all know. As long as they got Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry healthy, they're gonna make some noise. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Now we have the Kansas City Chiefs. You know what I'm saying? Probably the biggest wild card. Not even a wild card, but just you know what you're gonna expect from the Kansas City Chiefs, but at the same time you may not. You know what I'm saying? Just because of last season, and it seemed like these past couple years they've been getting they just they've been getting just by. You know what I'm saying? They've been just getting by. Wow, that was okay. They've been just getting by. You know, going 15-2 one season, then the next season not even making the playoffs. You know, so it's just all over the place. But as long as they got Patty Mahomes, they gonna make some noise. So with that being said, you know, I'm gonna put them, you know, I'm gonna put them just outside the top 10. Um, you know, as long as they got Patty Mahomes, noise is going to be made. I think that's self-explanatory. Um, One of the greatest QBs of all time, uh, the greatest, the most skilled QB of all time. Is yeah, well, that's pretty much all you can say. Um, and now we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know what I'm saying? A team that's on the brink of, when you think of Tampa Bay, you don't really know what to expect. I mean, they got some bright spots with Ruben Bain, you know, making some noise. Uh, but outside of that, I really. And then they have, you know, players like McCollum on the outside in the secondary. Then they have Zion McCollum. I think that's how you say it. Then they have Jamal Dean, and you know, they have Vita Vea if he's going to be there. I don't know. He requested a trade, so most likely he's not going to be there um, throughout the season. But you have Bucky Irvin, so you definitely have, you know what I'm saying, some pieces. You know what I'm saying, to work around. You definitely have some excitement within that organization, but you just don't know how Baker's going to play. You know, and the fact that their receiver room did take a hit by losing somebody like Mike Evans, who, you know, and Emeka Buka taking, you know, a little dip at the end of last season. Um, I don't know. You know, it's just, yeah, I don't think it's the right energy going in within that organization. You know what I'm saying? You got players requesting trades, players asking for uh contract extensions, not really getting them. You got, you know, have some players that may be battling injuries. Who knows? But you know what I'm saying, it's never a good recipe, or it's never, you know, a good result coming out of situations like that. So for that, I don't really see them as the worst of the worst, but you know, they're definitely going to be, you know, 21 to 25 range. You know, and then you don't know what to expect from Baker. You know what I'm saying? You don't know if you're going to get before the trade deadline Baker, to where the first 7 weeks of the season he just lighting the league up. Then when he get the playoff time, it's just starting to slow down out of nowhere. You know, uh, you don't know which Baker you gonna get. Now we had the Jets. You know what I'm saying? A team that can't catch a cold. We got uh basically no major improvements. I mean, they tried. You know, they got David Bailey. It seems like they're going to be a team that leans heavy on their defense. So I think that's pretty much all you can say about them. Hopefully, Garrett Wilson can stay healthy, because that's pretty much going to be the only bright spot within that offense. They can't catch a cold. 0 interceptions last season, so we'll see if they make an improvement there. But with that being said, like I said, Cardinals wasn't going to be dead last for too much longer. But you know, the first pick of the 2027 NFL draft goes to, we all know. Now we have Pittsburgh. You know what I'm saying? The steel curtain. Well, I don't know if you can call them that now, but you know what I'm saying, because that defense wasn't doing too much. You know what I'm saying? Or too much of nothing last season. With that being said, I feel like they're always going to be a team that's just, if mid was a matter of fact, let me move this around a little bit. I'm gonna put Vikings up here. Yeah, I think that kind of perfect right there. They're literally the definition of mid. I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers, but we ain't talking about 2020, 2021 Aaron Rodgers. We talking about 2026, 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Then you got Michael Pittman. You don't know what to expect out of him. You know, because he's shown he can be an elite. He can be in that elite category, but he's also shown that he can become non-existent. You know, and then, I mean, you haven't really made any major difference in the defensive end, but I see him just outside, you know, the playoff. Well, not just outside. It depends on what you consider just outside, but I don't really see them making the playoffs. I don't really see them making much of an improvement last season. Wouldn't be surprised if they go 9-8 to like 8-9. And like, it's just, that's the type of team that they are. I mean, you did get rid of Mike Tomlin, so that may make a major difference, but at the same time, the personnel hasn't changed. You know, the only good thing that I will say is their rookie class. They may have one of the, you know, best rookie classes this season, besides Drew Allen, because he most likely not gonna get no playing time, no PT. But as far as Jeremy Bernard, who I think could easily become one of the best receivers in this draft, you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be surprised if he became number 1 in this draft, because you know, he's just a technical receiver, can do a little bit of everything. So I wouldn't be surprised there, but outside of that, it ain't too much going on in Pittsburgh. Now we have another team that can make comeback of the year. You know what I'm saying? They were, a couple games from the Super Bowl just 2 seasons ago. You know what I'm saying? Now, you know, hopefully their defense can make an improvement, because, you know, their offense was a problem last season, but it was mainly because of injuries. Now, their defense was their defense. Yeah, it wasn't too much going on. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't no major injuries on the defensive end, and they were just bad. So hopefully they can make some changes there. And honestly, I'm gonna move this around a little bit. Once again, like I said, I'm gonna move the Bucks right here. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna move the Bucks right here. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Then I'm gonna move the Commanders right here. I'm gonna move the Commanders right there. I think that's perfect. What 19th? So yeah, like close to the middle of the pack. I feel like they're gonna be a team where their defense is gonna make or break their season. You know what I'm saying? Because that defense was atrocious last season. Couldn't stop a cold. But then at the same time, you know, their offense, you know, you don't know what to expect from their offense. You replace Deebo Samuel with Stephon Diggs. I mean, depending on how you look at it, that's an upgrade. Um, it's a lot of questions that need to be answered. But I don't really see them like a playoff lock type of team like they once was. What it seemed like they once was 2 years ago. You know, but I definitely being competitive. It seemed like they're a team that's still figuring it out. You know, even from their running back position, it's like they're still figuring it out. Uh, Jane Daniels still looking to make that leap. And speaking of leap, we're gonna move on to the Houston Texans. Hopefully, C.J. Stroud can make a major leap. You know, and bring the Texans back to what it seemed like they were supposed to be, which was at this point a top 15, a top 10 team. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna have to move Washington down. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna move them in upper echelon. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna move them in the upper echelon of of the 21 to 25 range. Well, that's 22nd. You know, um, yeah. I might have to move this around just a little bit more. Okay, so I did move it around just a little bit. And like I said, maybe CJ Stroud can make, what I'm saying, some that leap that a lot of people are expecting. But if you don't make that leap, they're definitely going to middle of the pack. You know what I'm saying? I'm still going to say, I'm an upper middle of the pack. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put them right here. I'm saying directly middle of the pack. You know what I'm saying? Because they definitely, that defense, that defense, Super Bowl level defense. You know what I'm saying? You can argue and say that they have the best defense in the league. I don't think I ever seen the defense fly around the ball like they do. You know what I'm saying? Or like they did last season. Let's see if they can keep it up. But, I think they're one of them teams where it just depends on how CJ Stroud plays. You know what I'm saying? Because last season it wasn't a good ending. You know what I'm saying? Let's just say that. It didn't end very well, and we'll see if that can carry into this season, or it won't, or he'll make a leap. If you make a leap, I see them as a borderline playoff team, but can easily make a deep playoff run. That's the best way to put it. And yeah, as you can see, this is my official ranking of 1 through 32. I'm saying this is my official ranking, 1 through 5. I'm saying 1 starting with the Rams and 32 ending with the Jets. I'm saying that's the best way to possibly put it. Honestly, I may make one more tweak. I could see, the Cardinals being just a little bit better than the Dolphins. And yeah, that's pretty much. I might make one more tweak. Yeah. All right. Now this is the official ranking of, saying the 2026-2027 season. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Y'all let me know which teams you move around, move up, move down. Um, and yeah, you know, um, I can already tell which teams y'all may say or may not say. But yeah, this is my official ranking. Y'all let me know.